Hello, welcome everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining us today on the 4th of July. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. We'll start off our program with a rendition of the national anthem played by Salem Common Neighborhood Association board member Jordan Santiago. Thank you. A round of applause for Jordan, our resident flautist. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. I know it's hot, so we'll try to get this moving quickly. My name is Milo Martinez. I'm a member of the Salem Common Neighborhood Association's Events Committee. I'd like to thank the City of Salem, Salem Historical Society, and our presenters, Dana Dunlap and Jonathan Streff, for being here today. Big thanks as well to the Maroney family for bringing our coffee and scones, and a special thanks to Hannah Diozzi, who originated this event before handing it to the SCNA. This is the 19th declaration reading, so I'm told. Lastly, thank you to all the elected officials who are here today. Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, Mayor Dominic Pangallo, District Attorney Paul Tucker, Senator Joan Lovely, Councilors Ty Hapworth, Jason Sidoriak, and our City Council President Alice Merkel. And thank you again to any other elected officials who I missed, if you're out there. So please visit the SCNA and the Salem Historical Society tables over here on my right to learn about more events coming up in the future. We'll continue our program with remarks from our elected officials, Mayor Dominic Pangallo, then City Council President Alice Merkel, and lastly, Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll. Thank you.
Good morning. I also want to acknowledge that City Councilor Aaron Tarowski has joined us as well, Councilor from Ward 1. Thanks for being here. I want to say thanks to the Salem Common Neighborhood Association for, again, organizing this special event and for the invitation to be with you all this morning. Congratulations to the Neighborhood Association on 4 decades of remarkable achievements for this neighborhood and for our common. 250 years ago, the people of Salem resolved the following in town meeting. If the Honorable Congress shall, for the safety of the United American Colonies, declare themselves independent of the Kingdom of Britain, we will solemnly engage with our lives and fortunes to support them in the measure. From that day to this, generations of Americans and those hoping to become Americans have been the beneficiaries of that pledge. Each of us carrying the responsibility to ensure that the vision of what America can be isn't diminished for the generations who follow. It's a vision of a nation where all are equal and where all are equally responsible for the integrity of our democracy. Constructive civic engagement, including the work of community organizations like the Salem Common Neighborhood Association, Salem's oldest neighborhood association, is a fundamental part of that, and it's what gives our democracy power. This year, we're marking not only America's 250th, but also Salem's 400th, And as part of our celebrations of Salem 400 Plus, we're holding events and programs throughout the year. I encourage you to visit salem400.org to find out more. And we're also presenting 100 Salem 400 medallions to organizations and individuals in our community who exemplify what it means to be Salem and who make our community the special place that it is. And it's my privilege this morning to present medallion number 29 to the Salem Common Neighborhood Association. Now, City Council President Alice Merkel.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. This is an event I look forward to every year. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Salem Common Neighborhood Association for all their events I've enjoyed over the years with my friends and my family and my community. And I've particularly enjoyed and appreciated this event and the perspectives and the context offered by the speakers, referencing how relevant the messaging still is today. I won't even go there. And that we are a work in progress. I remember a few years ago, Abigail Adams being here, and she discussed her plea for women's rights in her letter to her husband, Remember the Ladies. And thank you, Diana. And that is the context and the delivery of this event that has meant so much to me personally. And on behalf of the City of Salem and the Salem City Council, I'd like to present you with a proclamation in celebration and appreciation of your 40 years of service to our Salem community. Whereas the Salem Common Neighborhood Association is celebrating its 40th anniversary in 2026 and is the oldest neighborhood association in the city of Salem, and whereas for 4 decades, the Salem Common Neighborhood Association has worked to preserve and enhance the historic Salem Common, advocate for the surrounding neighborhood, and foster a culture of community, inclusion, and volunteerism by bringing together longtime residents, newcomers, families, seniors, and visitors through civic engagement, shared experiences, public events, and community traditions. And whereas through the dedication of its volunteers, the Salem Common Neighborhood Association sponsors and hosts free community programmings, gatherings, and traditions, including summer movie nights on the Common, the Little Free Library, seasonal celebrations, Salem's annual 4th of July reading of the Declaration of Independence, and the preservation of the historic First Muster commemoration, enriching neighborhood life and fostering a strong sense of community. And whereas the Salem Common Neighborhood Association has long served as a dedicated steward of the Salem Common and its historic landmarks, championing the preservation and restoration of the Washington Arch and advocating for the enhancement and continued enjoyment of the Salem Common Playground, helping to safeguard and strengthen these cherished community assets for residents, visitors, and future generations. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Salem City Council hereby congratulates the Salem Common Neighborhood Association on its 40th anniversary and expresses its sincere gratitude for 4 decades of leadership, stewardship, volunteerism, and community building, and recognizes its enduring contributions to preserving Salem's history, strengthening neighborhood connections, celebrating civic traditions, and enriching the quality of life for generations of Salem residents as the city commemorates Salem 400 Plus in 2026. And thank you again.
I mean, who doesn't love a good huzzah to start July 4th? Good morning, everyone. I'm Kim Driscoll. I'm grateful to have been a former mayor and now serving as your lieutenant governor, and this is the best way to start the 4th of July. Thank you to the Common Neighborhood Association. I had the good fortune to be here, I believe it was 20 years ago, when Hannah Diazzi started this little tradition of bringing us together on the 4th of July to read the Declaration of Independence. And for 20 years straight, I have been here because it really does recognize our place in history, not just here in Salem, but in Massachusetts. And today, this is no ordinary 4th of July, as we celebrate Salem's quadricentennial, 400th anniversary, and we celebrate the semi-quincentennial of our nation's history. This promise of liberty, the courage of those who came before us, the enduring values that continue to define the American dream. How lucky are we to live in a place that helped define so much of that history? As we celebrate 250 years of our nation, it's here in Massachusetts where, frankly, we've been celebrating since last year. We were early adopters and overachievers when it comes to celebrating our independence and played a meaningful role in that. And over the last year and a half plus, we've had a number of opportunities to celebrate our lead up to 250. We've held off the British troops at the North Bridge during Leslie's retreat. Another huzzah. We relived the Boston Tea Party. We've seen Paul Revere and sent him off for his midnight ride. We reenacted the battles of Lexington and Concord and drew crowds from around the country. We commemorated the Battle of Bunker Hill with our veterans groups leading the way. And we'll be topping it off tonight with a major 4th of July celebration, many all across Massachusetts. We have our own right here on Derby Wharf, and we have a major event happening at the Esplanade, which will be broadcast on CNN Live for those of you who want to watch from home. And there's a reason all those celebrations are happening. It's because it was here in Massachusetts where it all got started, where ordinary people stood up and said, enough is enough, where average citizens took a risk and a chance on self-governance. We've been bringing these historic milestones to life for generations, and it's reminding me, and I think all of us here, of the sacrifices that we have endured over these last 250 years. I think ultimately Massachusetts 250 is about more than celebrating our history. It's about our ability to live up to it as well. It's about celebrating the values that have endured for 250 years: freedom, democracy, opportunity, and the belief that ordinary people can shape the future. If you think about what happened 250 years ago, many of us know the famous figures that made it into our history books, but we know there were so many others who didn't, who were just doing something in collective action with others. This idea of self-governance and democratic principles and fundamental freedoms. They didn't know where it would land, how it would end. But they were willing to risk life and limb, taking on the greatest military empire known to mankind at that time in search of it. And as we honor those who sacrificed to secure those freedoms and the generations who continue to work on expanding liberty so that Americans can share in the promise of this nation, that's what we do here today. We celebrate those who came before us. We're reminded that every generation has a role to play in strengthening our democracy and carrying those ideals. So it is not just about celebrating our history, but living up to it. We can commemorate our past by modeling what patriotism looks like now. Progress over nostalgia, inclusion over division, and action over apathy. Those patriots laid the foundation. Now it's up to us to build on it. Massachusetts led that nation at its founding, and I know we're going to continue to lead as we build the next chapter of the American story. So as we celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, this is our moment to honor Massachusetts' extraordinary role in founding our nation, and hopefully to inspire the next generation to carry that legacy forward for another 250 years. Happy birthday, America. Let's continue to lead.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Today's reading will be performed by Jonathan Streff, a high school educator, historian, and reenactor, alongside with Diana Dunlap, public historian, Salem Historical Society trustee, and living history interpreter. Before we get started, a quick note. The Declaration of Independence includes language that reminds us of this country's highest ideals and also how far it has fallen short of them. Today we are presenting you the original unedited text from 1776, and with it, language that was used to perpetuate genocide, land theft, and other crimes against indigenous people. As you listen, please be mindful of the nuances of this document, written by imperfect men at an imperfect time, and be critical of what it means to be American living in this moment. Critical of their hypocrisy, knowing full well that when they declared all men created equal, they specifically did not mean all people. While we celebrate independence today, be cognizant of so many others, both domestically and abroad, who have very little to celebrate. Wars rage across the world, fueled by greed and xenophobia. Marginalized countries are being swallowed up by rising oceans, and thousands die when the weather is just too hot. Many in our own country are forced to choose between food and housing, chained to the machine of the American capitalism. There is no freedom until every person is free. Let today's words inspire you to always fight authoritarianism, fascism, and tyranny. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Before we turn this morning to the words of the Declaration of Independence itself, I'd like everyone to imagine what it really felt like to live in Salem in July of 1776. For the past year, Essex County has been on the edge of a war zone. Local men, people you knew, have now been killed. Smallpox, the most terrifying pandemic disease you know, is spreading. Boston was evacuated by the British Army 2 months ago and is a battered shell of a town. The Royal Navy has attacked other coastal communities with fire and sword, and fears of attack by sea continue to circulate. But the war at sea is also hammering Salem's maritime economy. We don't yet know that Salem privateers heading out into the North Atlantic will be successful, and in fact, the town of Salem is struggling to pay its bills while trying to fortify itself against attacks by sea. Large are the number of our poor, the Salem selectmen wrote to the state legislature in January 1776, describing widespread unemployment and an increasing number of citizens on public relief. We shall account ourselves happy if we can support our own poor, maintain our schools, and defray the other necessary charges of the town without the public aid. That spring, the Continental Congress in Philadelphia asked the colonies to solicit their citizens' opinions on declaring independence from Great Britain. And so the Massachusetts legislature duly asked the towns of the Commonwealth for their thoughts on this momentous question. On May 18th, Salem's town selectmen voted to advise its representative with the language that their successor, our current mayor, just read to you. Whether that the Honorable Congress should, for the safety of the United American Colonies, declare them independent of the Kingdom of Great Britain. They, the said inhabitants, will solemnly engage, with this their lives and fortunes, to support them in the measure. On June 4th, a town meeting of Salem's eligible voters confirmed this decision to take to the legislature. Salem had voted in favor of independence. But who had voted? In spite of political persecution, Salem did have a minority of Loyalist sympathizers. Additionally, while New England town meetings were radically democratic by 18th century standards, only a small minority of Salemites could vote in 1776. Almost half of Salem's 4,500 or so inhabitants were children under the age of 16. And of the adult population, white men, like sailors and laborers who did not own property above a certain value, were denied the franchise. The majority of Salem's adult population, as in most New England seaports, were in fact women, who could not vote on account of their gender. And the town's largest ethnic and racial minority, those who proudly termed themselves the sons and daughters of Africa, were denied the vote due to their race, even if they were free, which many were not. However, their community had developed a democratic tradition of electing its own leaders, a tradition whose legacy continues to this day. Whether they agreed with the sentiments expressed in the town meeting or not, every one of those 4,500 souls in Salem lived with its consequences, and many sacrificed, silently and now unremembered, as the Lieutenant Governor has just pointed out, towards the common goal. On July 17th, Salem printer Ezekiel Russell printed official copies of the Declaration to be read aloud by ministers in every church in Massachusetts, the 18th century equivalent of a news broadcast. On Sunday, July 21st, Salemites sat down in their pews to hear these words for the first time. The world of British America that they had all been born into was gone. Maybe. If they could make this idea of independence work.
In Congress, July 4th, 1776, a declaration by the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the government, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form. To them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are the more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good.
He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation, till his assent should be attained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them.
He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people should relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only.
He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures.
He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions upon the rights of the people.
He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within.
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands.
He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to law for establishing judiciary powers.
He has made judges dependent upon his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance.
He has kept amongst us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures.
He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power.
He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation.
For quartering large bodies of armed troops amongst us.
For protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states.
For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world.
For imposing taxes on us without our consent.
for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury,
for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses,
for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries to as render it as once an example and a fit instrument for inducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. He's talking about us. They're talking about us.
for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments,
for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever.
He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us.
He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people.
He is, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation.
He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their own hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is the undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be ruler of a free people.
Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America,
in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name, by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is, and ought to be, totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Signed by the order and behalf of the Congress, John Hancock, President. 3 cheers for our liberties and the United States of America. Hip, hip,
hip,
huzzah!
huzzah!
Hip, hip, huzzah!
Huzzah!
Hip, hip, huzzah! The public readings and publication of the Declaration in the summer of 1776 started a conversation and raised questions that we're still grappling with 250 years later. It represents a cause that was far from a sure thing. It was a statement of who we wish to be in a nation yet to be created. And it was a covenant of shared sacrifice. Being created equal was very different than equality before the law. Abigail Adams knew this when she told her husband to, quote, remember the ladies. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony knew this in 1848 when they used the language of the Declaration of Independence in their own Declaration of Sentiment to demand full social, political, and legal opportunity for all women. Huzzah! Frederick Douglass knew this. Douglass escaped from enslavement in 1838 and came to make his home first in New Bedford and then Lynn, Massachusetts. He wrote his first autobiography here and never stopped fighting for freedom for all. In 1852, on the 4th of July, he delivered a speech in Rochester, New York, in which he recognized the hypocrisy of a document declaring freedom and equality in a nation that held humans in bondage. Quote, this 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated Temple of Liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems are an inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony, unquote. 10 years later, in the midst of the Civil War, Douglass helped to turn Abraham Lincoln from a moderate into an emancipationist and campaigned to create the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, giving up his own sons and many of the sons of Salem and Lynn to fight for the end of enslavement and a redefinition of freedom in this nation. Douglass saw the Declaration of Independence and the United States as an unfulfilled promise, an unfinished work, as Lincoln would later call it in the Gettysburg Address. Adams, Stanton, Anthony, Douglass, and Lincoln all knew that we all must have a role in shaping our nation. This commemoration does not belong to one person. Joseph Warren knew this before the revolution started, as he said in March of 1775. Our country is in danger, but not to be despaired of. Our enemies are numerous and powerful, but we have many friends, determining to be free, and heaven and earth will aid the resolution. On you depend the fortunes of America. You are to decide the important question on which rests the happiness and liberty of millions yet unborn. Act worthy of yourselves. On this Independence Day, let us say the words. Let us mean the words. Let us act on the words. Let us, quote, mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, that we will make sure that every single person in this nation has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then as Lincoln said, that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Thank you.
Thank you to Anna and Jonathan. And now if you all join us for a sing along of the America the Beautiful, performed by Salem High School students Francis Jones and Caitlin Modoff. And if you'd like to sing along, the lyrics are in the back of the program that you may have been given.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet, whose stern in passion stress, a thoroughfare for freedom beat across the wilderness. America, know thy liberty in law. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife,
who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine.
oh beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years.
Thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
Another round of applause for all of our readers, our political leaders, and our performers. If your patriotism is stirred and your interest piqued, I encourage you all to visit the Peabody Essex Museum, where a new exhibit is on display, Pressing Importance. It centers around Ezekiel Russell, a local printer who played a key role in publishing and disseminating the Declaration in 1776. The exhibit includes surviving 1776 copies of the Declaration, printed right here in Salem at his Essex Street shop. It's definitely a must-see. And now to conclude, we've gathered to reflect on our Declaration, a powerful symbol of some of our nation's greatest values: freedom, unity, and shared purpose. There's something uniquely special about the way people here come together. Salem has a way of turning strangers into friends and neighbors into family. We'd love to have you join us at the SCNA, where we are dedicated to the improvement, preservation, and protection of our historic Salem Common and the principle of fostering goodwill and camaraderie amongst neighbors. So on behalf of the SCNA, I'd like to wish you all a momentous and safe 250th Independence Day. Thank you again for being here and supporting the SCNA and for making this such a wonderful place. We have coffee and scones and lemonade over here. Please have some. And I think this occasion calls for 3 more hip hip huzzahs, followed by 3x a pox on our king, which we'll do together. Ready? Hip hip! Huzzah! Hip hip! Huzzah! Hip hip! Huzzah! A pox on our king! A pox on our king! A pox on our king! Thank you, everybody.